Well, welcome back, everybody, to Medieval Total War Viking Invasion. And it's a wonderful day in Ireland because today we are going to attempt something that I am willing to bet many of my viewers have hardly heard of and probably not experienced themselves. What I'm talking about is inheritance, the inheritance mechanic in Medieval Total War. This was actually a thing in this game all the way back in 2002. In which, if you married a foreign princess, there was a chance that you could inherit some or even potentially all of her faction's lands if her faction was eliminated. However, very many things conspired to make that a vanishingly small probability. And until very recently, we had very little idea about how this mechanic actually worked. For example, if you take any foreign princess on the map and drop an emissary on her, you will get a message that says if her faction is eliminated, you may have a claim to some of her lands. Conversely, the princess can also approach you, and she can set up a marriage offer between herself and one of your princes or your king if they are unmarried. And here we have a foreign princess actually headed our way. This is Princess Coira of the Scots. Her mission, as it says here, to court potential husband, namely me, King Dermot I of the Irish in Munster. Now, my king, Dermot, is currently married, but his son, Prince Ed, is not. He is the current heir apparent. He's 16 years old, just came of age, and as we can see here, he is not married. He does not have that ring token. So, in one turn, this princess is going to arrive at our court, and she is going to present herself on behalf of the Scottish faction to marry my Prince Ed. Now, thanks to the very interesting work done by a poster at the TotalWarCenter.net forums by the name of Welder2, some of the mechanics of inheritance have become more clear to us. I did a campaign recently in which I played as the Spanish, attempting to replicate inheritance. I had a brief video in which I was able to inherit some land playing as the Scots, but there's been a lot of question marks in between those times, and really I haven't gotten a very good handle on it until I think now. So we have here a very good circumstance for us to maybe set up the conditions required to inherit Scottish land. Let's take a look at what the Scots currently own. It's a relatively short list. They've got their king here in the province of Kyle. The king, Yoganan I, is 47 years old. He is married, but there are no princes anywhere. If we look here, we will see that neither of these royal bodyguard units is a prince. And if we check out their portraits, there's no royal blood on either Lord Bryce or Callum Bissat. Similarly, the other two provinces owned by the Scots have no royal bodyguards whatsoever, no princes at all. So that means that this faction's elimination is relatively secured. We could either wait for him to die of old age, but there's always a chance that he is married and he does have a son coming of age in a couple of years. So our other chance is assassins, which is why we have absolutely flooded the zone here in Skye with about a half dozen, or I think it's 11 actually, assassins carefully sent over from Ireland. These are all 3-star assassins trained up in Brega at the Rookery here, which is very easy to achieve relatively early in the game on Viking Invasion. To get your 3 Valor assassins, you just need this building, which requires a keep, and there's 3 prior levels of the tavern line of buildings that will each give progressively higher tier assassins. So we've got about 20 or so all told. 3-star assassins. These ones in Lagin are on their way as well. But we are getting everything ready for the likelihood that this princess is going to propose to our faction. Once she does, we send the assassins, we swarm the king, we eliminate the Scots, and hope to inherit some land. So let's talk a bit about the factors, the criteria that seem to go into inheritance. First off, we do need that marriage alliance, and it's not good enough for us to ask, unfortunately. We don't want to send an emissary to request the marriage of a foreign princess, because that request, even if it is agreed to, although it will give us a marriage for the purposes of continuing our faction or getting our heirs married off, it is not going to give us an alliance with the target faction and seems not to set us up for inheritance. What you need to do is wait for a foreign princess to approach you. So that's what we've got here. There are a couple of other criteria. The two most obvious are that you cannot be the richest faction and you cannot be the largest military faction. So we can pretty easily see that we do not own the largest military. Just look at the size of some of these armies of the Scots, the Saxons, the Mercians. Even the Welsh probably have more men than I do in their armies. So that's pretty straightforward. Maybe a little less obvious is the question of richest faction. And what I've been doing as the Irish, as you can tell, is playing a very, very conservative game here. We have hardly expanded at all. We only conquered Munster out of the 3 territories that I currently have. And so we can see that my income is fairly low. My treasury is low. It's under 2,000. My projected profits are low. But more importantly, my projected income is fairly low. This is the number that matters, the projected income. If this gets bigger than any other faction, we will be considered the richest faction. And if we are the richest faction, or if we are the faction with the largest number of troops, we cannot inherit land. It's just the game's way of balancing things out. There is a third criteria that can disqualify you from inheritance, and that is sometimes easier to check. So in Medieval Total War, there is a glorious achievements mode of victory. This is different from the regular conquest mode of victory, which only requires you to take over 2/3 of the map or 100% of the map to claim either a lesser or a complete victory. In Glorious Achievements, you have minor quests. These are things such as holding certain provinces for the purposes of homelands. These might include sending crusades. They might include building a certain building or a certain number of buildings in a particular province. And some of them are a lot of fun. Some of them, it has to be said, are bugged and don't function. But Glorious Achievements mode offers a way to play the game without conquering absolutely everything. So it's my usual go-to when I'm playing Medieval Total War. If you are leading in Glorious Achievements points, then you cannot inherit land. So this could be one reason why many people, myself included, have failed to inherit even when you're trying to do everything else right. Because nowhere in the game documentation does it let you know that you are disqualified from inheritance by being the richest, the biggest military, or the most winningest in terms of Glorious Achievements. Now, why is Glorious Achievements relevant? After all, we're playing in the Viking Invasion expansion campaign, and there is no Glorious Achievements mode at all. Well, unfortunately, when there is no Glorious Achievements mode active, the game is still searching and determining for a Glorious Achievements points leader for the purposes of inheritance. And in the Viking Invasion campaign, even though you cannot play Glorious Achievements, there is still a check being kept on who is ahead in terms of Glorious Achievements points. This is a simple matter of whichever currently living faction is at the bottom of the faction list. For the Viking Invasion campaign, assuming all factions are still in play, that would unfortunately be the Welsh. They're the last faction listed in the selection screen, and I believe they are also the final faction listed on the in-game documented files. Irish, conversely, are at the top of the list. They are the first faction you can select. So if you'd like to have the best chance of inheriting, play the Irish. And finally, there is one other very unfortunate bug that we have to be aware of, which relates to inheritance. So the way the game figures out whether you can inherit a province or not on the demise of a faction is it calculates a certain number of points based on lots of different criteria. One of those criteria is whether you own any neighboring provinces belonging to that faction. So in this case we do. We own a couple of provinces that border onto Connacht. That is going to give us 50 points for the purposes of calculating whether we can inherit this province. And in a way, technically, we also do border Kyle because we have a fleet here in the Irish Sea, which is connected by a port to Kyle. So this is just one step away, essentially. So we are considered to be neighboring this province. Another criteria is time. If we have ever owned that province in the past, the game needs to know for how long we've owned it. The game also needs to know how much time has passed since the marriage alliance was first agreed to. The more time that passes since the marriage alliance, the fewer points we earn to inherit from that faction. But the bug that screws all of this up is, as fairly typical for Total War games, a save reload bug. This is associated with going into the main menu. So after the marriage has been agreed, if you go to save your game by pressing escape, you get to the main menu, you come back to the game after that point, the game will pretend that that marriage never occurred for the purposes of tracking inheritance. In other words, you could do everything else right, but if you've gone to the main menu after that marriage was struck, it's as though you never had that marriage for the purpose of inheritance. All the other effects of the marriage are in play. So your son here, in this case my Prince Ed, would still be married for the purpose of having a wife and having children. You would still be allied with the faction that sent their princess, in this case the Scots. It only affects the inheritance chances. And that is very unfortunate because it essentially means you've got a window of time during which, from the moment the marriage is struck, you cannot leave the game. You must make the inheritance happen. So that means we want to wrap this up relatively quickly here. Okay, there's some more details we can get into. I'll put a link for this discussion where you can read more about it yourself in the description down below. But for now, let's just get on with it. We'll end the turn and we'll see about the marriage offer. And here we go, a marriage proposal. Prince Koira to Prince Ed. In this dangerous world in which we live, a solid alliance can mean the difference between life and death. In order to propose a long-lasting agreement between our nations, I offer my daughter's hand in marriage as a gesture of goodwill. I await your reply with trepidation. From King Yoganan I of the Scots. Now, this is a risky alliance to make because doing so will cancel my alliance with the Vikings, which I've held since as soon as I could at the beginning of the game. If you want to attempt this, I would recommend allying with the Vikings early so that you don't have to worry about them while you just stay small, try not to get too rich, try not to build up too many troops, and simply wait for other factions to eventually get around to sending you one of their daughters. But at this point, we are going to have to cancel that alliance with the Vikings and accept the marriage. Alright, so now let's check out Prince Ed here. 17, yes indeed, he is married. We can check in our diplomacy and see that now we are no longer allied with the Vikings. We are, however, allied with the Scots. And we can continue our moves to, end the Scottish faction while we try to inherit some of it for ourselves. But just in case they don't do the job, we'll send this other group of assassins up to Ski to just be a backup. Beautiful. So it's a new turn. It's time now to send the assassins in for the kill. We're right next to Kyle, so we'll just queue up about 11 assassination orders, and all of these guys are going to have a 17% chance of taking out this rank 3 king. We're told here this leader has no heir, and killing him will eliminate his faction. His forces will become rebels and will still have to be dealt with, but they will not act in a coordinated manner. Alright, our first assassin was a failure. Let's see. Alright, we got it. 5 or 6 guys in. We succeeded. Our assassin struck out in the night and removed the head of the serpent in one stroke. Now you must feign horror at the tragedy of this senseless and untimely death. And the Vikings, as expected, have finally got around to attacking us. But we did it. The Scottish leader has been assassinated, he has no heirs, and his forces have degenerated into minor factions. Some of these people have accepted your claim by marriage on their province and are joining your forces. The rest are rebels and pose no immediate threat. So let's just take a moment to bask in this. We did indeed inherit 2 of the 3 provinces belonging to the Scots. As you can see, Connacht here outlined still on the minimap as blue, but with a now Irish force inside of it. And in Kyle, another blue province, but this is all of our forces. Ski, though, gets absolutely nothing. So I have some theories about that. And let's just get to the map here. I think that what occurred in Ski is that because we had no agents inside Ski at the time, and we had no direct link with Ski, unlike Kyle and unlike Connacht, where we both are sort of considered to neighbor them, we don't have any ships up here. So Ski is a little too far outside of our range for us to actually inherit it. But this is very nice. Very nice to see that the system works once you kind of have some insight into how it functions. Let's take a look then at our new property in Connacht. These are all the forces that the Scots had here. They've got a general here, Run Boyd, who's already got some very nice traits. These are the traits he had, evidently. 3 command stars, 5 quills of acumen. Very good. Got to work on that loyalty, but that's fine. And more to the point, we get these units that we cannot train ourselves. Highland Clansmen. This is the unique unit available to the Scots in the Viking Invasion campaign. And if we look over here in Kyle, this was the former capital, we'll see that we've got the 3 Royal Bodyguard units, one of them lacking the extra man, who was, of course, the king that we just assassinated. In addition to that, we've got several Highland Clansmen, a few other troops. Again, things that we could train, but things that we haven't for the most part. But this is very nice. So there is a way for you to work out inheritance in Medieval Total War if you keep in mind things like trying not to be super rich, trying not to be super big in terms of a military. Make sure you've got a nice stable of assassins, because that took us 5 or 6. And also make sure that you have some borders, preferably, with the province you are trying to inherit. So I hope you enjoyed. We finally made it happen on camera. I'm very excited about this. Now, of course, at this point, we're in a rather difficult situation. We're at war with the Vikings, but hey, so is everybody else in the campaign, and this gives us a little bit of a toehold on the mainland without having to do anything, without going to war with anyone, without invading. We can just sort of set up shop now here in Kyle, and you can only imagine how this could work if instead of an Irish or a Scottish princess, it was a Northumbrian princess or a Mercian princess who had come to us. We would have inherited some very different territory. So it is worth attempting. If you're up for it, it's kind of a bit of a challenge run, something to try in Medieval Total War. Think you'll be the envy of your friends from 20 years ago who this almost never happened to. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Check out the thread in the description for more details about how to achieve inheritance, and we'll see you next time.